Hi guys, I'm Libertman, forced to be alone but free to decide how to live it. And welcome to the first live stream of the day. Today I'm not going to start as usual, but kind of I will, but in a different way. I'm not going to start with any anecdotes or starting with cultural blame, but I'm going to start with the evidence that actually shows about male loneliness in developed countries, because loneliness has become a word that everyone uses, but very few people check what the data really says. So this live stream is not about declaring winners or losers. It's about understanding patterns, misconception, and risk signals, especially for men living in developed societies. So for this topic, I selected a study from 2022 by the authors Surkalim, Luo, and Eres, and other authors, that is called The Prevalence of Loneliness Across 113 Countries, Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis. So this is a large-scale systematic review and meta-analysis. You have the link in the description for further and detailed country coverage, age effects, limitation, etc. So I will start reading some excerpts and commenting the implications and findings, to try to break it down with a simple language, as simple as possible. So I start reading. Loneliness prevalence estimates varied widely across countries, age groups, and measurement tools. So this first sentence already dismantles a common mistake. There is no single loneliness rate for a country. Because we hear in different news or maybe in journals that some other YouTubers share about the loneliness rate in some countries, or this is the most lonely country or with the highest rates in loneliness. So loneliness depends on how it is measured, who is being asked, depend on age group and cultural context, and the survey instrument that is used to collect the data. So whenever you hear this country is the loneliest in the world, that's already a red flag of the seriousness of the results. This study doesn't rank countries like a league table or a top ranking. It maps prevalence ranges and patterns. So I go on reading. High prevalence of loneliness was observed in several high-income and developed countries. So this is an important correction to a common assumption. Loneliness is not a problem limited to poor countries or unstable societies with lack of infrastructure and so on. In fact, many developed and high-income countries show significant loneliness prevalence. This suggests something crucial, that loneliness is not primarily about material deprivation. It's about social structure, relationship patterns, cultural expectations, and related to identity formation. And all that matters enormously for men as well. I go on reading a bit more. Younger adults often reported loneliness prevalence comparable to or higher than all older age groups. So this is one of the most misunderstood findings in loneliness research. The stereotype says that loneliness is mainly an old age problem, right? But the data says that not necessarily. In many developed countries, young adults, emerging adults, and early career populations report equal or higher loneliness than elderly groups. That means that loneliness is not only about widowhood or retirement or declining health at a later age. It's also about unstable identity, having to do with fragmented communities, influencing in mental health, delayed life milestone, some achievements that for newer generations are being delayed. And also it's about weak social anchoring that, again, the new generation are facing, including myself as a millennial as well. And young men particularly are exposed to all these factors. So briefly, what the study does and what does not say about men. To make a clarification about this study. This study does not claim that men are always lonelier than women. Also does not claim that one country is the loneliest of a top ranking. This study does not reduce loneliness to gender alone. But it does allow us to say something with precision, that in developed countries, loneliness is widespread, and younger adults are not protected. And gender differences depend on age, context, and structure. So male loneliness must be understood as contextual, structural, and developmental, not as a fixed biological trait only. So let's try to see why developed societies create male loneliness risk. This is where the interpretation begins. So let's do it carefully, but we are here to break this complex data down and understand in a way that is as simple as possible. So in developed societies or countries, tend to feature a high level of individualism, a delayed family formation, work-centered identity. These societies also show a weaker intergenerational ties and fewer informal male spaces. What we discussed, I think, last week about the lack of enough spaces for men. For many men, this creates a paradox. More freedom, but fewer social anchors. The study doesn't spell this out, but it provides the conditions under which this pattern emerges. So, why men don't talk phrase is the wrong explanation. The data does not say that men are lonelier because they refuse to talk. that's a moral story, not an evidence-based one. The more accurate framing would be like this: that social structures change faster than male relational models. That expectation is shifted without replacement rituals. And emotional connection became privatized. So men didn't, quote unquote, fail. The environment changed. And what this means for claims about specific countries, about being the most or the least loneliest, I think I had heard some years ago about, or maybe you have read about the happiest country in the world. I think it was Bhutan or somewhere near Nepal in Asia with some monks, some Buddhist monk. Well, in the same way as these claims of being the happiest country in the world, sometimes there are also some magazines or online magazines, or nowadays everyone writes a blog saying that Japan or Korea are the loneliest country in the world. And if you search online, maybe you are going to find like 7 simultaneous countries being the loneliest, the saddest. But it's not serious. No one, I mean, it's something impossible to measure because realistically, but what we can know is that in most countries and in developed countries, we are all having a bad time as men, and so that is the key takeaway to remember and to give importance to, not the numbers or this kind of top rankings. So what all this means for claims about specific countries? Well, from this study alone, we cannot say that Japan is the loneliest or Bhutan is the happiest, or that I don't know. What we can say is that loneliness is highly prevalent in developed context, and young adults are not shielded, unfortunately. Male loneliness must be analyzed within structure, not the stereotypes. This is why sensational headlines mislead. So, if you've been enjoying until this moment, please, I would highly appreciate your like to this live stream, or if you're watching the replay, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, share this channel with someone you know that may get benefited by this content. And now I'm going to move further to the usual second part of the live stream. That is where I analyze the study results and implication from the C4PC model to tailor advice to each personality types to give valuable insights that are helpful for every person, and not to give general advice that is 90% BS for most. So I'm going to connect these global findings to male lived experience, and also let's try to explain why developed societies amplify the male loneliness that exists in all over the world. And also I'm going to break this down across the 4 C4PC macro groups. And let's clarify which men are most at risk and why. ideally. I will try my best, as always. So, why developed societies amplify male loneliness? The study shows a high loneliness prevalence in developed countries, but it doesn't moralize why. That's our job to do it carefully with the interpretations. And the job of many researchers. So developed societies tend to combine high individualism, mobility and relocation, and nowadays even more with this change in industries that we are facing, delayed marriage and family, productivity center kind of identities, and also digitalized interaction replacing embodied communities as there used to be in the past. For men, this creates a specific vulnerability. That is, belonging becomes conditional on performance. So you are valued if you work, if you produce, if you provide, if you succeed. But there are fewer default places to belong as a man without proving value, without having to be doing stuff. Loneliness in this context is not absence of people. It's absence of unconditional inclusion that nowadays we all can see that women have and experience every day, apart from having laws in their favor. So why younger men are especially exposed to this current situation? I continue reading the study. Loneliness prevalence among younger adults was comparable to or higher than that observed in older populations in multiple regions. So this matters deeply because younger men today often face unstable work trajectories, what I was mentioning before about this constant uncertainty of the workforce and industries that are dying and being replaced, and also younger men often face delayed milestone in their life, not being able to have your own home until you're 40 or 45, or that were possible to do it younger in other times. Also fragmented peer groups and fewer rites of passage into adult male roles, as there used to be in the past as well, and many of them. In earlier generations, identity was scaffolded by work communities, by unions, by churches, by neighborhood groups, and extended families that share intergenerationally. Those structures are weakened now. So young men are expected to build identity alone. That expectation correlates strongly with loneliness. So why male loneliness is often misread? Male loneliness in developed countries is frequently misunderstood also as social awkwardness or emotional immaturity and personal failure. The other day we were reading about the hikikomori in Japan, and one of the main factors was that external pressure, the eyes from the other people being judged by with personal failure. That was one of the main factors of Japanese young male feeling to withdraw and to start isolating themselves. And it's like the initial stage of the isolation phase. But the data suggests something else in this case. Loneliness is systemic, it's not idiosyncratic, like belonging to a culture only. Men are often socially present but emotionally peripheral. They are connected digitally but not relationally anchored to the people they are related to. They are surrounded by people, yet existentially isolated, not feeling connected or part of a community or part of feeling that their presence and their contribution matters to the people around him. This is why advice like just go out more, just socialize, bro, fails, because it treats loneliness as a quantity problem, not a quality and a structure problem. So now let's do a C4PC model differentiation in the 4 macro groups. The same global data produces different loneliness experiences depending on the personality structure. So this is where the generic narratives collapse. And that is the whole point of this channel, to share information and insights that are valuable for every man, for every personality types. And so you can skip all the rest of advices that don't apply to you and that are not relevant to your life. I was sharing the other day that this is my second week streaming that, and last Friday I was feeling like a kind of astrologist because by the end of the streams I make a segmentation of the 4 macro groups, and so I'm feeling like I'm reading the horoscope for every group, but I think you're going to get used to, and you know that this is serious and scientific information. But it's also part of my work trying to make the process of you knowing your own personality types that would take a lot of time, to make it as easy as possible to initiate that process. So by first knowing your macro group, each macro group contains 4 personality types because there are 16 personality subtypes in the MBTI. So instead of you having to go alone and research and by yourself how to do that, well, you first can know which macro group you belong to, and then start researching further, doing the MBTI and the Big 5 test, and knowing which specific personality type you belong to, and then knowing yourself with more detail with different YouTube channels that specialize in that personality type. And so you can come back here and receive the tailored insights and sometimes advice as well, if you want to take it, for your specific personality type. So, and you can discard the rest because don't apply to you, because you function and feel and think differently than the other people and the other men. So I'm explaining again once in a while for the newcomers, that the new people hopefully join in, or if you are watching a replay in the future, and to understand what this channel is about and its value. So let's start with the internal rational macro group. In this case, what is the loneliness profile of this macro group? Well, it is characterized by cognitive isolation, a low need for frequent contact, a high tolerance for solitude until meaning vanishes. So in developed world countries, they have some risk associated with loneliness that comes from remote work or more prevalence of remote work, digital substitution of relationships, and intellectual self-sufficiency masking emotional deprivation. So how loneliness manifests for the internal rationals? Through loss of motivation, through detachment from society, and from an identity retreat into private worlds. So what helps the internal rationals to get out of this? Well, it helps them to start getting closer to purpose-driven micro communities with low frequency but high depth type of relationships. They don't need a big community or to be talking with a lot of people. Also, an intellectual but relational overlap. In the case of the internal emotionals, their loneliness profile is characterized by emotional invisibility, feeling misunderstood even when they are surrounded by people. They experience a strong need for resonance, not numbers of people, to feel connected and understood. In developed countries, they have the risk of falling into transactional relationships and being used, what we are discussing in some videos about the beta fixer, and most of great part of the beta fixer or who felt, including myself in my past, are from the internal emotionals type of personality. Also, performance-based validation and emotional expression devalued in men. So this is how loneliness manifests in the internal emotional through quiet sadness. Well, I don't know if you can hear. I'm adding now especially effects in sounds with sirens because this is an urgency to recover from. So how loneliness manifests in the internal emotionals? Through a quiet sadness, a self-withdrawal, through internalized shame. And what helps the internal emotionals? Well, mostly coming back to one-to-one safe bonds and conversation with at least one meaningful person. Also to have meaning-oriented or meaning-centered dialogues, again with meaningful conversation, feeling understood, at least by one person. And also to come back to environments where sensitivity is not penalized, where it is okay to say, today I feel like shit, and there's no problem to say that. In the case of the external rational, their loneliness profile is characterized by functional isolation mode and being surrounded by people, but being alone inside, without depth, and their identity being tied to competence, to this productivity cycles. In developed countries, they have the risk to fall in this leadership without emotional reciprocity in their working environments, to fall in this perception that success is replacing belonging, and receiving respect but without closeness. So how the loneliness manifests when it is experienced by the external rational? Well, through burnout, through cynicism, I'm focusing in myself, but for a long periods of time and without perceiving anyone else. And also relational disengagement that is related to this as well. And what helps the external rationals type of personality? Well, coming back to peer alliances, having shared responsibility spaces, and allowing the permission to be human, not just an effective robot that comply with all the rules and productivity KPIs. And for the external emotionals, their loneliness profile includes emotional hunger, over connection followed by disappointment, and constant validation seeking. That's why they change one person to the other. They need constant conversation. They need to be surrounded by people all the time. But in a loneliness context, even more than their normal threshold. And in developed countries, they have the risk to fall into superficial sociality, this kind of falling into changing new people or replacing the same as the monkey branching done by women in relationships, but in this case just to talk or to have someone to talk about anything, about the weather and all this small talk, because otherwise they start feeling bad if they can't. Also, having attention without commitment by the other people, and experiencing emotional labor but without reciprocity. That is something common to be experienced also by the internal emotionals. So how loneliness manifests in them? Well, it does through exhaustion, through abrupt withdrawal, and which is rare in them, and instability in relationships. And what helps the external emotionals? Well, to come back to consistent group belonging, to set boundaries about giving, because the internal and external emotionals are the most giving type of personality, and that's why they end up being used. And making sure that their depth overpasses their external stimulation. So why developed in this case doesn't mean connected necessarily. So one of the most important takeaways from this study is that economic development does not immunize against loneliness. In fact, it can dissolve traditional bonds or privatize suffering, and can outsource meaning to the individual only. But men who historically relied on shared external structures are disproportionately affected. Loneliness becomes the cost of hyper-individualism in developed societies. Everything that falls apart from the middle ground or a balance will cost an unhealthy situation for any person. This is a general insight in general, and in this case for loneliness, and in how the context affects a person, whether he's living, in this case men, because it's a channel for men, how it affects if you are living in a developed, in a technologically developed country, and in an underdeveloped country. Well, each situation, each contextual situation will affect you in a different way if what you are receiving from the outside is an unbalanced quantity. Because, for example, in underdeveloped countries, the sense of community or group activities, culturally, or their costume, each more evident than in technologically developed countries. But sometimes, for example, or great part of men still feel empty, even surrounded constantly by these shallow meetings with a lot of people. So being surrounded by a culture that constantly gather to talk about nothing, for deep people doesn't mean anything. It's more that person prefers to talk at least with one person about a deep topic, or to feel understood. So what the data does not say, this study does not justify claims like men are lonelier than women everywhere, one country is the loneliest, one country is the happiest, loneliness is inevitable. So what it does say is more subtle and more useful. It says loneliness is pattern, is contextual and modifiable. So male loneliness in developed countries is not a moral failure. It's a structural signal, a signal that social architectures have changed, and we are kind of living a transition right now. A signal that male identity scaffolding has eroded over time. That's what, again, we are living like a transition in the male identity formation, a new male identity formation, and it's a signal that new forms of belonging have not yet replaced the old ones. So understanding the data doesn't solve loneliness, but it stops us from blaming the wrong people. And that's where real solution begin. Okay, it's all for now. I hope you have enjoyed and have found valuable all this information and live stream. If you liked this live stream or video, please like, subscribe to the channel, share with someone else that can get benefited by this information. Much courage, take care, and see you in the next one.